I confronted my father when his racism shattered my view of him. Growing up, my father, Alan, was my hero. He worked hard to provide for us, always had a joke ready, and taught me how to fix a flat tire when I was 14. But as I got older, I started noticing cracks in his seemingly perfect image, offhand comments about our neighbors, angry rants during the news, and strange excuses to avoid certain restaurants. It was always subtle, but it was there. I told myself he didn't mean it, that maybe he was just old-fashioned, but denial only works for so long. The breaking point came when I brought my college boyfriend Jamal home for Thanksgiving. Jamal was everything I could have hoped for. Kind, smart, and funny. But my father barely shook his hand, then spent the entire dinner peppering him with passive-aggressive questions. Then, after Jamal left, my dad said something that turned my stomach. As soon as Jamal was out the door, my father leaned back in his chair, swirling the last of his whiskey. "So, how long is this phase going to last?" he asked, smirking like he was in on some cruel joke. "What phase?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. "This dating experiment," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You can't seriously think he's suitable." I felt my face flush with anger. "Suitable? He's a person, Dad, not a job application. What is that supposed to mean?" He shrugged, feigning indifference. "I'm just saying it's not practical. People will talk. You'll face challenges you don't even realize. I'm looking out for you." "You're not looking out for me. You're being racist," I snapped, the words tasting bitter as they left my mouth. I had never said that word out loud to describe him, but there was, hanging in the air between us. His face hardened. "Don't use that word with me. I raised you better than that." "No, you raised me to respect people. Or at least, I thought you did," I shot back. "But now, I'm wondering if everything you ever taught me was just a lie." We didn't talk for 2 days. My mother tried to play mediator, claiming he didn't mean it, that he was just old-fashioned. But I was done with excuses. That Sunday, I decided to confront him directly. I found him in the garage, tinkering with his old motorcycle like he always did when he wanted to avoid the world. "Dad, we need to talk," I said, crossing my arms. He didn't look up. "If this is about the other night, I think we've said enough." "No, we haven't," I said firmly. "You need to explain to me why you think it's okay to judge someone based on their skin color." He sighed, finally meeting my gaze. "It's not about judgment. It's about reality. People like Jamal—" "Stop," I interrupted. "Don't finish that sentence. Do you even know him? Do you know how hard he's worked to get where he is? Or how he's treated me better than anyone I've ever met?" "That's not the point," he argued. "The world isn't fair. You're setting yourself up for a hard life." "No," I said, my voice shaking. "You're the one making life harder for people like him. Do you even hear yourself? You're not protecting me. You're just spreading the same hate you claim to hate when you see it on the news." For the first time, he looked genuinely shaken. He opened his mouth to respond, but closed it again, as if realizing he had no defense. I continued. "You taught me to stand up for what's right, to speak out against injustice. So why can't you do the same?" He didn't answer. He just sat there, staring at the floor. The weeks that followed were tense. My father didn't apologize outright. He wasn't the type. But I started noticing small changes. He stopped making snide comments when Jamal's name came up. He even asked me once how his classes were going, though his tone was awkward and forced. The turning point came during a family barbecue. My cousin, who shared many of my father's old views, made a crude joke about interracial couples. My father glanced at me, then at Jamal, who was flipping burgers by the grill. "That's enough," he said quietly but firmly. The silence that followed was deafening. My cousin laughed nervously, then mumbled an apology. My father didn't say anything else, but the look he gave me said everything. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was a step. Over time, I realized that change doesn't happen overnight. My father still had his flaws, but he was trying, and that mattered. Years later, when Jamal and I got married, my father gave a speech at the reception. His voice cracked as he said, "I wasn't always the father she deserved, but I'm proud of the woman she's become, and I'm grateful she found someone who makes her happy." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was enough. Because sometimes, the best way to fight hate is to refuse to let it define you. or your family.